Okie, good choice. It's cool.
Hi, this is Teresa with Divine Frequency, and we are here with Stacy Goode today. Thank you so much for joining us.
You're welcome.
And we're really excited to hear your story today. So on behalf of the world of ladies and gentlemen who have been following the story of Corey Goode, of the Goode family, of your story, thank you so much. And I'm really excited to get a chance to talk to you today.
It's going to be fun.
Yes. So, tell us about you. I want to know, what are your passions?
I love crystals, for one. These are just things that I'm drawn to. Nature. I love nature. My favorite season is the fall. And I love the ocean. The ocean recharges me. I'm a water sign, so.
Where do you like to go?
Gosh, Hawaii was amazing. Before then, I always liked Mexico, the Caribbean waters.
Nice.
I really like that.
You say you're a water sign. What sign are you?
Scorpio.
Scorpio. Nice. What's your favorite crystal?
Right here. Celestite.
Cool.
Actually.
That's really pretty. Mine is amethyst.
Amethyst?
Yes. There's so much amethyst. Well, cool. Well, let's jump right in then. So let's just give a quick background. So you and Corey have been married for 24 years.
Right.
And Corey was recruited at the age of 6 into the MyLab program and did that for about 10 years. And then he was a part of the program called the 20 and Back. And he was a part of that where he was in the secret space program for a while, came back, and then you guys met and got married, and then a lot of stuff has happened since then.
Yeah.
And as you guys came out into the public eye, and all of us have been here as a part of your story, what we're really interested in learning about is how this all unfolded for you, specifically as Stacy, his wife, standing next to him as all of this went down. So can you kind of talk about the beginning, like when you guys first met?
Yeah, we met in college in Oklahoma, so a small town outside Oklahoma City.
What year was that?
That was, when was that? 1990, I believe. That's when we first met. It was 1990. We met at college, and then.
How did you guys meet?
Somebody introduced us, actually. We were in chapel. We went to a Christian school, and so we had to go to chapel twice a week. And so at the end of chapel, Corey and I were both sophomores, and the previous year was my freshman year. He wasn't there that year. But I knew Neil since my freshman year, and he introduced me first to Corey's roommate. And I shook Jerry's hand. I said, "Hi, Jerry, nice to meet you." And he said, "This is Corey." And I was like, "Oh, okay, hi, Corey." And as I shook his hand, the only way I can describe it is my soul recognized his. And I said, "What was your name again?" And he said, "Corey." And I said, in my head, I was like, "Corey, I'll never forget that name." And right after that, we all went to lunch at the commons area, at the cafeteria at school. And we had a good conversation. And somewhere out there's actually a picture of the very first day we met.
No way!
Yeah, because there's a guy that was he was doing photography. He liked photography, and yeah, he took our pictures.
All right, we're gonna manifest that. Send it in.
That would be awesome.
We're tracking you. We're tracking that photo.
So it was at that lunch that I learned that he was a religion major, and my grandfather was a preacher, and I saw what my grandmother went through being a preacher's wife, and I was like, I do not want that life. So, but after I met him, I was like, darn it, he's a religion major. And
what was your major?
I kept thinking about it. I was biology major. And then as I was walking home to my dorm, I was like, I'll make an exception for him. I was like, I just had such a connection with him. So, and we didn't get together right away. We didn't. It didn't work out. That's a whole story in itself. But then we ended up dating other people, and then those relationships ended, and we came back together.
Okay.
And so then it felt really like, wow, this was meant to be, because like
it wasn't like the right timing yet, and then
right, and then we came together. He like came back, we like came back together.
And how was that? How did that happen? Like, what was that like when you guys finally decided?
We started hanging out. The thing to do in Oklahoma in this little town was go to the lakes and hang out, right? So we were at a lake, and one of the lakes there, and just spent the afternoon together and had lunch and stuff. And I had been in a really controlling relationship, and he was such the opposite that it really it woke me up at that point and made me realize you're worth more than this. That relationship, which I had ended, I had decided this was not for me, but that reaffirmed you made the right decision because, that person was not treating you right. He made me realize that I should be treated right,
So you said that Corey was a religion major, and were you guys both raised Christian, or like what was y'all's relationship, I guess, to
the church?
Yeah, the church and spirituality and stuff.
Both of our grandfathers were preachers. Okay. And my grandfather was a Methodist and then a Baptist preacher, and then his was Nazarene. And so his grandfather actually went to the college that we went to, like decades prior. So both of our mothers were preachers' daughters. We had that in common.
Wow.
We had a lot of like similar things in our family, and
lots of influences externally that were the same
right
for your environment. So were you guys both practicing then when you were together, like after college, and you guys came back together and
like going to church and stuff?
Yeah, were you guys going to church and things like that?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, here and there. At college, we definitely were.
Okay.
We definitely were in college, and then we did, once we got married, we kind of got away from it. We were in self-discovery. We kind of grew up in our 20s together. That's how I always say, because, we were still young. We thought we knew it all, but we're like, I was 22 when we got married, and he was 23, just turned 23.
So was there anything that you can think of, like back to when you guys first started dating and before you got married, or maybe like right after you got married, that you think back to fondly, like the two of you, is one of your favorite memories?
A really interesting memory we had that was really awesome. Our third year of marriage, for our anniversary, we went down to San Antonio and stayed on the Riverwalk.
Oh.
And the hotel that we stayed in, I want to say it was like the 7th floor or something, they had the hotel pool and hot tub. So we're sitting in the hot tub, and there was another couple there, and we weren't even talking. We were just enjoying. And I look up in the sky and I see some lights, and I sat there and looked at it for a while before I said anything, because I was like, am I really seeing this? Yeah, I am. Okay. And they really looked like fireflies in the sky. Mm-hmm. And there were so many, we couldn't count, and they kept like, they would go into each other and make one light, and then they would split back off. And sometimes they would, like 2 would go in, and then 3 would split off.
Whoa.
So counting them was like impossible. And it looked like they kept colliding with each other, but there was no collision, there was no sound. So I pointed out to Corey, I'm like, and he's like, whoa. And then we showed the couple, and the guy actually was a pilot, and he was very interested. He said, those are not planes. I said, I can tell you those are not planes. So we watched that. This is back in '96. So, there was no cell phones or cameras or anything. But we stayed there, I would say, like 10, 15 minutes, and the security guard came out and was
like...
like...
the big old camcorders.
Right, yeah, exactly.
You probably couldn't even see the stars at all. Right. It's just black.
To call the news station.
Yeah.
So the security guard comes out and he essentially kicks us out. He's like, the pool's closed, and we show in the sky. We're like, do you see it? Yeah. And he's like, yeah, that's unusual. It's time to go in. And we're like, oh. And there was no place else on the hotel to really see that view. So,
oh no!
But I want to see it again.
The man keeping you down.
Yeah, it was really, really cool.
Was that the first time that you had any sort of like interesting supernatural occurrence?
Yes, that was my first time, and it was like pretty magnificent. I would say the other thing, when we were first married, we used to do all the time was go country dancing. He taught me how to two-step, and we did a lot of country dancing. Had a lot of fun.
Okay, so that's awesome. And so you have this beginning of your soulmate relationship, and you go in and you get married. When did you guys get married?
93.
93.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you get married, and so this whole time, Corey knows what's going on with him, and he's having to go through this process within him.
Right.
And then how does this story start to unfold? What was the very first thing in your mind that occurred when things started to happen with this story?
Okay, well, I did find out that our whole marriage, Corey, actually, I think right after his first 20 and back, he recalled that, so he knew, and he, I came from a conservative Christian home, so as far as UFOs go, I was pretty closed-minded. I wasn't quite so sure if I believed in aliens at that point or not. So, understandably, he didn't tell me.
Right.
If he wanted to protect his marriage, he wasn't going to tell me.
Especially with the background that you guys both had, with the religious life and everything.
Right,
so.
right. So, let's see. So that went on. We were married for a long time before anything came out. And really, and actually now I can look back and see it makes sense. Like, for instance, when I met Corey in college, he was telling me that he had been to the hospital. He thought he was having a heart attack, but it ended up being an anxiety attack.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, like, now I can look back and go, oh, wow.
Connect the dots.
Yeah, I get that. That makes total sense now,
Yeah.
So I guess for me, it started happening, I would say the summer of 2013 was like when he had to have eye surgery, and he had a retina detachment. His retina had detached, and it was very traumatic. They were, shooting needles in his eye, and they did like 3 procedures. One of them he was under anesthesia for, and that one is where they lasered all the way around the eyeball, the entire thing, because it wouldn't attach. They had a very hard time getting it to reattach. So that's when after he woke up from anesthesia, that's when he had his total recall of the other 20 and backs. And
the 2 others. So there were 3 total. When he came back from all 3, he had only knowledge of the first experience of 20 years. And those other 2 experiences were hidden. And then in 2013, after the surgery, after anesthesia, when he came out, he realized that there were 2 other.
Right. Right. And so that was extremely, those were some dark, dark days. He was suicidal because apparently there were some really dark things that happened during those times. So that's when the Mayans came, and they helped him out, and they were like, okay, this is not serving him, this is too much for him to deal with. Well, it just so happened that when they were there, this is in the middle of the night, for some reason I got up and I walk into the room where this was occurring at, and Corey told me, this sounds like a reaction I would do, totally. I threw my hands up and I said, I'm not seeing this. I am not seeing this. I do not want to see this. And I left. And apparently they kind of helped me, like, okay, she doesn't want to see it, so we'll kind of, mute that memory for her. But in the morning, I knew something had happened. Mm-hmm. And so I came out to Corey and I said, I had some really crazy dreams last night, and they seemed extremely real, like something happened.
So something was kind of tugging at your brain, although you couldn't remember exactly what the memory was. It was still like,
I knew something had happened, and I said, did anything happen last night? And then he told me, and I was like, and when he was telling me, like, I envisioned myself doing that.
Okay.
I felt myself back at that moment.
Yes.
So
just a quick pause and a little bit of background. So if you, and I know a lot of you already know the story of Corey Goode, but I'm just going to kind of get us up to where we are before we move forward. So he does the 20 and back, and then you guys are in Texas, mm-hmm. and then around in the 90s, the sphere beings start showing up in our solar system, and then around 2011, 2012 is when it's a huge influx of them. And then he starts being visited in his dreams in 2011 by the blue avians, who then appear to him in 2013, but that happens after the Mayans come. So the very first physical visitation that's occurring in 2013 is when the Mayans come to your house in the middle of the night, which is when that happened.
Right. Okay. That was like my first experience with anything out of this world.
Which is really interesting to note that that's also the first time, like, in a while that Corey was receiving, like, boom, like physical contact with them coming into his home.
Right.
And then the fact that you came in as well. So it was sort of like that was the catalyst and the springboard for what was to come. After the Mayans came in the night and you came downstairs the next day and you said, I've been having crazy dreams. And was it that at that moment that Corey told you what was happening?
No, I just kind of took the information and was like, okay, that was kind of weird, but he seemed so much better. Like, he wasn't depressed anymore. He wasn't like in this dark place. So I was happy. I mean, it really helped him.
So I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. Did he tell you about the Mayans? He told you about the Mayans, but he didn't tell you about the breadth of everything else.
Right.
Okay, so he did say.
And he only told me because I asked him. I'm like, what? Did something happen here last night?
And what exactly did he say?
He said, what did you say? He said that these beings came and helped him with. He said it very. He didn't go into a lot of detail. Yeah, he just said that these beings came and they helped him with, they helped heal him.
Okay.
Is what he said.
Okay.
And I was happy with that. I was like, okay.
Weird but cool. Okay.
Weird but cool. And I saw the change in him, and I was glad because I was really worried about him.
Okay.
So I was just like, okay, I'm glad.
You saw its effects, so you believed it because you're like, well, obviously he's getting better and changing on a spiritual level.
Right. And then soon after that, we moved to our place where a lot of things started occurring.
Things are getting good now,
right? A lot of things started occurring. So we moved there in April of 2014.
Okay.
And then the next thing big for me was Christine Anderson. Mm-hmm. She came and visited. Corey and her had been talking on Avalon and had developed a friendship, and I met her, and I loved her, great person, she helped me a lot, but she did the first audio recording of Corey because of his experience. He wanted to try to get it out. That video, he had a hard time getting through because every time he would try to start talking about it, he would either start having an anxiety attack or he would start stammering. It's like he couldn't get it out. So it was a very casual audio recording. It wasn't supposed to get out. It wasn't supposed to be published. It was going to be for research only.
How did that shift happen? Because you said that, he told you that he was visited. You see his mood improve and everything, he gets better spiritually. And then what was it that, like, when did it first come out to you? Because it came out to you before he decided to do these audio recordings, right? So how did that?
No, actually, I don't think so. I mean, really, I was just kind of watching him and listening.
As he was going through his spiritual transformation, because I know that he reached the point where he was being told, like, okay, you need to start talking about this, and so he started, like, getting on the forums under the pseudonym.
Right.
And then that was when he decided to do the audio recording with Christine.
Right.
Okay.
Right. He finally decided he was going to try to. So it was very casual, just on our couch, and Connor was young. I think he was like 2 or 3, 3, I think. And so I smoked cigarettes back then, so I was going outside and smoking and thinking and processing and going, I don't know what to think about this.
That was your first time hearing the testimony?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So I was just like, I'm not sure what to think about this, and I'm more of an observer, I'm an introvert, and so I like to, I'll observe before I jump to conclusion, so I gotta see what's going on here. So let's see, after the first recording, I mean, it didn't get published or anything. And
what did he disclose in that kind of made you just like...
I actually was really half listening.
Okay.
I wasn't so sure if I really wanted to hear all of that.
You were just kind of trying to like...
Yeah, I would listen a little bit and then I would leave. And then
you were going through a lot.
Yeah, I was just I was allowing myself to hear bits and pieces.
Okay.
Let's see, and then he had his first shoulder surgery.
Okay.
Because he had been injured on the job the year prior. It took insurance a year to approve the surgery. So he had that surgery, and actually it was after the surgery that the entity attachment event happened. He noticed that he had these entities, and so he was trying to get rid of them, and he, with his willed them away, but it didn't work. And he told me about it, and I said, well, I come from a Christian background, what are you going to do? So you use the name of Jesus Christ, right? There's power in the name of Jesus. That's what we're taught. So I said, why don't you try that? It's worth a shot. So he did that, and lo and behold, it worked. So he said they just were leaving by droves. And it was daylight.
Wow, so how many attachments? You say droves, that makes me...
That's what
puts an image in my head.
Yeah, he said there was a lot.
Wow.
And this was in the daylight, and they were kind of like a smoky kind of partial figure. Like you can kind of see the outline of a figure, but it was sort of smoky at the bottom. So after those left, he went through a whole nother transformation. I mean, he was a new person. Our dog, who wouldn't hardly sit by him, started sitting in his lap.
Wow.
And his energy was completely different. It was like a changed man, like in a great way. And I was just like, wow. And it was after that, him and Christine talked and said, hey, let's do another audio recording. And that audio recording, he was able to talk without the anxiety, without the stammering.
Yeah.
And he was able to actually communicate the information.
So you were witnessing the transformation, and that's what was allowing you to accept what was going on, because although you weren't even understanding or knowing the breadth of the information yet, you were saying, okay, well, these beings visited him in the middle of the night, and then you see how that actually makes his life change. Right. And then you also got to see how the therapeutic nature of speaking out and like getting out there in the public eye was changing him as well.
Yeah. Well, and the about being in the public eye, that
hadn't happened yet.
Yeah, he tried to remain anonymous.
Oh, that's
actually. Right. He wanted to remain anonymous. This was only for research, because he had a family, he had a lucrative job. He had been in the IT industry for 20 plus years, so you spend that much time and experience. He was a cloud engineer making $100,000 plus a year. So wanting to protect that and our livelihood, you
Right.
know, wanted to remain anonymous, very fearful. Oh my gosh, what would happen?
So what happened after he did his second audio recording with Christine? What happens next?
Christine Anderson did a video, and I don't agree with everything, you know, we all have our own perspective, but she did go over, and I don't want to, she did go over how his testimony started waking people up, and they started realizing, oh my gosh, I have some things too. And so there were a lot of background things that were going on with the forum. But at the same time as this was going on, a well-known researcher reached out to him and wanted to do an interview. And he still, you know, we still wanted to remain anonymous, so he's like, no. And they asked him 3 times, you know, for interviews, and he's declined every time. I want to remain anonymous, you know, I don't want to do this. And it was at that point that the researcher, I guess they got upset, but they outed him. They did a video, said his full name like several times. Each time his name was said, my heart just went, oh, you know, it's like, there goes our livelihood.
Oh my goodness.
You know, because in the IT field, they search the internet. And so who's going to hire you after, you know, this stuff comes out? So anyhow, you know,
And
who
that
wants
was
to take
in
the risk?
2013.
2014.
2014.
This is
okay.
in 2014, yeah.
Okay.
So now the researcher did, Corey filed a complaint with YouTube, and the researcher did take down, you know, removed his name so if he would drop the complaint. And that's how that was resolved. But at that point, the damage had already been done. I mean, because prior, if he's just posting on forums, that's not going to pop his name.
Right.
Right? Because he was an alias, that's not going to pop his name. But if you have somebody that's put your name out there, that's going to come up on a Google search. So the damage had kind of already been done at that point. But so
what happens
kind
next?
of forced,
Yeah.
kind of forced out in the public eye.
So after the researcher outed him and now his name is out there, what happens next?
So around that same time, I happened to be reading this book, Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself by Joe Dispenza. And kind of interestingly enough, when the Mayans visited back in 2013, so this was like a year prior, he had been told to get this book, and he thought it was for himself, and so he bought the book, and it was just laying on the table for like 6 months, and I kept looking at it, and I was like, can I read that? And he was like, sure. So I started reading it. So I was reading it back in our bedroom, just on I think a weekend afternoon or something, and I was on chapter 6, and things started clicking in my brain, like things started making sense. I could look back and go, yes, that's why this happened in my life, and that's why I reacted this way, and things just started really clicking and making sense, like something was unlocked. So I was in bed, I fell asleep, I took a nap. So as I was waking up, before I opened my eyes, I was seeing the cosmic web, and I remember I kept my eyes closed, and all
What
I
does it
kept,
look like?
oh gosh, it looked like a lattice. I mean, just not really a lattice. I've seen pictures that depict it really
Okay.
well, kind of very spiderwebby,
Okay.
but completely geometric.
Like points connected and very
Yes,
geometric.
right, perfectly geometric,
Okay.
you know, in design. And the message that I kept hearing in my head was that all religions are one, we are all one. And that's really what I got from it, that I could pull down immediately. Because this download, it was a download, I didn't know what was happening. In fact, it really freaked me out. So I wake up and it's still going on, and I'm just feeling like all this information flooding into my head, but it's going in so fast that I can't process it. And so I come out to the living room and I tell Corey, I'm like, what is happening? I feel like this, you know, I feel like I have so much information coming into my brain. I feel like I could write books, but I don't have the info. It's coming in so fast I can't process it. And he's like, you're having a download. It's okay. You know, I'm like, okay. And I had heard him and Christine talk about a download.
Ah, okay.
And I was like, okay, that's kind of interesting. And then it happened to me like probably within a month, you know, of me learning.
That was the seed, and then
I guess so, yeah. And so that went on for several hours. And in fact, I was telling Corey, I need it to stop. How can I make it stop? Because it was too intense. I was like, this is great, but like, I'm tired.
Were you getting like images, or it was just, you couldn't even really tell or describe what it was like because it was just too much to process?
It was too much to process, yeah. So, but after that, I have noticed things, especially in the last year, especially very recently. But back then, what it did was it allowed me to be able to handle his information, because he would tell me stuff, you know, I was picked up by a blue orb last night, you know, and he would tell me about the things that were going on, and I was like, wow, that's amazing. You know, I wasn't doubtful. I wasn't like, that's impossible. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. You know, like, it made sense to me for some odd reason. You know, I was like, okay. I was able to handle the information. I think I had some other information that was given to me that it, you know, kind of helped me transmute it or something.
So how did that download change y'all's relationship?
It, let's see, it made me be more in it with him. I was, you know, supportive, you know, because he was flying to Boulder and things like that, you know, for doing the Gaia TV show. Things started happening pretty fast, and it was really hard to take everything in, because so many things were happening around that house.
Were you learning his testimony through cosmic disclosure, or was he at some point did he start telling you about?
He was telling me all that was, well, let's see, about his testimony. Yeah, I was asking questions, of course. I was picking his brain. So, you know, I mean, I had direct access to him. So, yeah, I would sit there and ask questions, and he would tell me. And then he was also telling me what was occurring, you know, and then I was seeing evidence of this stuff. It's like I said, I was a smoker. And so smoking was my way of thinking, I guess. I did that a lot to kind of process, not a good way to process, but I would go out to our backyard. Well, funny enough, that's where I started seeing a lot of evidence. And somewhere I have a picture of this. I actually started learning that if I saw something weird that wasn't there the day before, go get Corey and be like, what is this, you know? And so I did, the first thing I remember seeing was like a perfect triangle of like landing gear, you know, landing gear. Yeah, landing gear. So, I mean, it was a perfect triangle. So, and he confirmed, you know, that, yeah, that happened, and that they had come. And
so you saw like the remnants of what would like it appeared that something had landed there.
Right, right, yeah.
It was like marked on the ground.
Yeah, yeah. Like say I woke up, right? I go outside, I smoke a cigarette. It's the morning. I see this like landing thing. I'm like
in the
triangle.
grass?
Yeah, like in the dirt.
Wow, in your backyard.
Yeah, in the backyard, because our backyard was kind of shaded, so there were some areas that were just dirt. There wasn't much grass.
Wow.
So I go in, I'm like, Corey, come here, look at this. And he's like, oh yeah, I was picked up last night. About that. Yeah, I'm like, okay.
You're like, this is my life.
So, yeah, I mean, it was just all unfolding all around me. I mean, weird things were happening around the house. Another thing I saw in the backyard was a footprint going in one direction, and then the same footprint going the opposite direction, like when he left, and then when he came back, you know, when they dropped him back off.
And you saw the 3 points of where the craft had landed, and then the footprints in conjunction with that.
Right. And then MUFON, right? It was MUFON. Corey was looking out on their side a lot, because he was like, surely people are seeing these craft, flying. And sure enough, somebody did. Somebody reported it and totally described our area and everything. So that was interesting.
Wow, that's cool.
Yeah, that was another confirmation. There was just confirmation after confirmation that this was occurring. So there was no denying it.
And how did that change the rest of your life? Like, as you're starting to kind of realize this is being blown wide open now, and you're seeing evidence upon evidence.
I had a hard time processing, actually. I struggled with depression for a while. When all this was occurring at this particular duplex, where a lot of stuff happened, I was taking naps a lot, just going back and like processing the information. That's how I dealt with it, and it was kind of hard, because it was like learning that we have been lied to for so long, and that what we view as the real world really is an illusion. And when you start really seeing what the real world's really like, and you realize what's been hidden from us, done to us, made us act certain ways, created division so that we don't know our co-creative abilities, all these things. That created a lot of depression, anger. I mean, I went through the whole
stages of grief.
Yeah, the whole stages of grief, absolutely.
So tell me about how this changed your belief systems regarding like religion and just the way you viewed. I know you're touching on this.
And actually, as far as religion, I did struggle with that for a while, for sure. I've always been very open-minded, though. Never, really wanted to bash any other religion, like my religion's the only way. No, I've never believed that. Honestly, I always felt there was something missing as I was growing up, like in the church, and this message and everything, and Corey's experience and testimony fills that void, and it makes better sense to me. So I've been able to incorporate it, and also with reading The Law of One, that's helped me understand as well.
So the idea of oneness and the collective consciousness and how we're all intertwined and we are all a part of the same being, that message alone sort of like expanded out for you.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, because I mean, that was the main thing, was that all religions are the same, like we're
which
all
you were downloaded
one.
with,
Right. I mean, that was the main thing I got. I guess that was the really big thing I needed to take away from it at that moment. And then all the other information is coming into play.
Yeah.
In fact, very recently, it has been coming into play. It's been helping me. So it's kind of amazing.
So there's a whole spiritual side, but then you also touched on realizing how much we've been lied to. So I'm sure that anger was driven pretty deeply there too, when you're starting to look around and think about like, how did it change the way that you interacted like with the media and things like that, where you're seeing this stuff on the TV and like now you're thinking like, wait, this isn't the whole story. Or
yeah, and I always kind of knew a little bit about that, but yeah, I just I got through that okay. It was frustrating, you get angry, you're like, how stupid do you think we are, But I realized that some people haven't woken up to the illusion yet, that we are living in an illusion. So, but I think more and more people are being able to, that veil is being dropped, or something's happened to where they can't hide it anymore, like as deeply as they've been able to hide it from us for whatever reason. So people are beginning to see through it.
Yeah. So all of this stuff starts to happen around the time that he's outed, his name's out there, he's starting to work closer with David Wilcock, who had been talking to since 2009, but now he's starting to talk about getting into cosmic disclosure, and so he starts going to Boulder and recording. Like, what's happening with you at this time? Like, do your kids know about this? Does your family know about this? Like, how is this, like, what happens there? Your friends and things like that.
Yeah, we had really kind of isolated ourselves for a long time anyways. We just didn't really fit into normal society.
Really?
So,
Now we have a club.
Yeah. I mean, even before all this happened, you know, we were just a little bit different. I think more open and enlightened myself, but just more open to things.
I'm thinking about how this has changed the way that you raise your kids. Like, I'm sure you have all kinds of amazing, like, things to teach them from this experience of, like, just kind of unplugging from the program. And, like, I just think about
and I can't wait to completely unplug them from the program. That's what's, you know, because they're still in, well, Connor's been going to not a public school, but Marissa's been in public school for years.
Okay. And you have a 14-year-old and a 6-year-old. Okay.
Right. And so, I can't wait to unplug her from that because she does not fit in. She hates it.
She's ready.
She's ready. Yeah. So absolutely. I want to go back to more of a simplistic life. Mm-hmm. I do not care about things. I care about how I feel. I care about energy. I care about getting my kids into nature, and, you know, not all this materialistic stuff that we deal with where we live, and I know other people deal with where they live too.
It's about the experiences that you can have together.
Right.
For sure.
Right.
So what happens with, I know that, and this, because this is all out on Corey's blog, and you guys are talking about things that are happening around the house and, like, things like that. Like, what, can you tell us a little bit about how, I know things started to get crazy around the time that he started doing cosmic disclosure. So take us through that journey. What does that look like?
Let's see. Well, there was one instance, so all kinds of interesting things were happening. And actually it was like, as he would try to move forward, like he went to meet David. He flew to California to meet up with David and talk with him in person. And on his way out there, when he was at the airport, a man tried to buy him a drink, and it was actually a drink that he used to drink, but hasn't for a long time. And it was a shot. And he offered Corey the shot, and Corey said, no, I don't want that. And there was a young guy beside Corey, and he said, oh, I'll take it. And he grabbed it, and he drank it. And, like, almost immediately he started vomiting. It made him extremely ill. So things like that were occurring, and it's like, at that point, you kind of, my attitude was, that's scary, but we're doing the right thing, apparently, because we're getting resistance, and there's got to be a reason for that. So that kind of made me more committed.
Yeah.
You know?
So no one really knows because you sort of isolated yourselves. You're waiting for, are you waiting for the first season to come out, or have some seasons come out by that point? Or, like, because your family would see it on, they wouldn't, I mean, they didn't know anything about.
No.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean, we really kind of danced around what he was doing for a job.
Okay.
Yeah, so we kind of just danced around that and, you know, answered the questions that we were comfortable asking. You know, kind of appeasing.
Okay.
But so that's how we dealt with that.
And then some stuff happened around the house, right?
Yeah. So I was seeing things, and I remember I told David about this too because it was very interesting. So in the kitchen, we had a small kitchen, but it had a window that looked out to the street. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, I was doing dishes or whatever, and out of my peripheral vision on the sidewalk, kind of near the street, kind of far, I saw like a black streak just fly by. Mm-hmm. And I was like, wow, that we had a very active neighborhood, like kids riding bikes and stuff. So I was like, wow, that kid was fast, you know? And then I didn't think anything of it. And then it happened again, like a few weeks later, same thing on the sidewalk. I was like, wow, that's a fast kid. I was still thinking that. Then the third time it happened, and it ran right in front of the window. And I saw it. Oh my gosh, that like gives me chills just thinking. And it was like over 6 foot tall. It was tall. Now when it was out on the sidewalk, I couldn't really tell, but when it ran right in front of me, I was like, holy crap, Corey! You know? Panic button! what was that? So, that happened. We had, so the kids got on this remote control car kick. Marissa was like, I want to get all these remote control cars and have fun. Fine. So we bought a few.
Fine.
we bought a few, they didn't have any. And I tell you what, those things would go off all the time. There was some kind of energetic stuff going on. We also had, because Corey had come out, apparently there were these beings that were interested in us, trying to figure out who's this. So, and I mean, it is so weird when you hear it's like a movie, on our rooftop, you could hear, it sounded like little children running, like maybe 3 or 4 of them running around on our roof, like they'd run from one end to the other and then stop and then, it was not an animal, it was very bizarre. There also was evidence of abductions. There were, Corey had his hair short back then, now it's long, but back then it was short, and I'd be like, what is that on the back of your neck? It was like a needle mark just right at the base of his skull. Mm-hmm. And our hairstylist was even like, what is that? And it would stay for a few days and then it would go away. And then I think he was remembering that he had been injected, but that happened several times. It would go away because I would keep an eye on it. I was thinking, oh my gosh, I hope it's not a cyst or something. Yeah. Because it was a little bump, but it had like a needle mark right in the middle. And I saw that on him several times. And there were other evidences around of abduction type things. And I'm glad I don't remember my abduction. That's all I can say.
You were abducted?
So, yeah, I was abducted.
When did that happen?
Probably 2014, maybe 2015, around that time. 2014, 2015, in that same duplex that happened. So.
And how do you know? Does Corey know, or how?
There was evidence. There was evidence of abduction, and then he told me what had happened, and he was very upset at that point with the military because they mind wiped us.
Okay.
They did mind wipe us. So that's why I don't remember.
Gotcha.
But I'm cool with that. So apparently it wasn't a good experience.
You're like, I'm cool. You took that away. I can have that.
With Christine's second video.
Okay.
And they were really happy with how it came out. It came out really good. Well, she sent it to Bill. They were married at that time, Bill and Christine. And so Bill looked at it and he told Christine, this is unusable. This is a horrible recording. We can't post this. And her and Corey were kind of scratching their heads because they're like, it sounds pretty okay to us. You could kind of do some editing on it, but it's usable. And really the issue was, it was a belief system conflict of belief systems, because Corey had talked about using the name of Jesus Christ when he removed the entities, when he, made them leave. And Bill Ryan, he has more of a Scientology background, so that he did not like that. He did not want to put that in there, but that's the truth. That is what happened. I'm sorry, I'm sorry you don't believe it, but that's what happened.
Well, I'm not going to censor you.
So that's kind of what started all this butting of heads.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's kind of what started all this. So then it kind of becomes a forum war, right?
Gotcha.
And then that leads
people wanting to cling to their belief systems and not expand
and joining
out.
sides, and doing all this crazy stuff. Well, since people did join sides, and we had invited some people in our area that that lived near us into our home, and met them, Avalon members, and those Avalon members didn't choose our side, and they knew where we lived because I had invited them into my home. They started harassing us. There were just little weird things that would happen. You know, lights would be shining in on my daughter's, you know, room at night, in the middle of the night. Things were happening in the middle of the night. Our water hose would be turned on, you know, on the front yard. I never used that hose, so, you know, it'd be turned on full blast.
Right.
You know? So that led us to install video cameras.
Okay.
Because we were feeling, you know, what's going on. You know, we have these ET things going on, but this seems more human, you know.
Right.
I don't think an ET would just like leave your water on. So
Like, hey, gotcha. Gotcha.
So we installed video cameras, and you know, Corey was under a lot of stress at this time. I mean, a lot of stuff's going on. He's not sleeping well at night, so he's up, and it's about probably between like 2:30 in the morning, and he's just, you know, sitting in the living room, and he starts seeing lights on our security cameras.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, he saw evidence of, there were people, like 3 people outside of our house, like on there's a street right in front of our house. So they were kind of running up and down the sidewalk, and then there was a car that was flashing its lights, another car that was flashing its lights, so it looked all orchestrated. Mm-hmm. You know, and you're like starting to wonder, you know, are these robbers? Or that's what it looked like they were, you know, thieves trying to orchestrate something. But they were just all around our house. So ultimately, because of that harassment, that led us to move.
Okay.
I loved that duplex. I loved it. But, you know, it got too risky.
Yes.
I've got young children, and their bedrooms were right next to that street. So, yeah, I couldn't do that.
Yeah.
So we moved, and we were able to move because Corey let people know what was going on, and 2 supporters were really concerned about our safety. So they made some big donations so that we could rent the house that we're in for a full year.
Wow.
So we were able to live like rent-free.
That's amazing.
Amazing. I mean, it was really getting kind of scary there. So that made us feel a lot better. And then we took some precautions as well to make sure that our address wasn't as easy to find as it was prior. So that really helped.
Okay.
That really helped us feel more secure. And so now we're on our 2nd year, and the only bad thing about that is the rent here is like double of what we used to.
Oh, man.
So yeah, now we're having to foot the bill, but we'll probably be moving soon.
Okay.
But, you know, things can be a struggle sometimes.
Yeah. So you got your new place. Did everything kind of settle down after you got the new place? As far as the ET stuff, contact, or
no,
that stayed ramped up, and then at least you weren't being harassed.
Right. The human stuff came to an end, which is good. The ET stuff, I mean, I mean, there's actually been, we've, I guess, seen a couple of shadow beings here, which we saw that at the duplex all the time. Here it's only been a couple of times. There it was like...
And what do you mean by shadow being?
It looked like a figure, like you would look down the hallway and you would see like a partial figure, and they kind of peek around the corner and pull back. Okay. You know, that type of thing. So we saw that at the duplex all the time. Here, not as much. Here, what I've noticed more is the military. The military trying to threaten, trying to scare us. When we first moved in, we do have footage of this. We got about half of it on camera, but by the time we got our camera ready, a Chinook helicopter circled our house like 3 times, at least 3 times, and you could, I mean, there was a guy hanging out, you know, he was really close, you could see it, and you're not going to mistake the sound of a Chinook.
And that's on Corey's vlog, so you guys can check out that video, because I remember seeing that.
Yeah, because we were inside, and it was like, you hear this roar, and you're like, what is that? Go outside, and I mean, he's just circling right over our house 3 times.
Wow.
And then the next thing that happened was, and this happened when he was out of town. So he was in Boulder filming, and it was during the summertime because the kids and I were out at the pool, and helicopter gunships flew over That happened actually twice when he was gone. But by the time I had my camera, I mean, I was all wet. I was in the pool with the kids, you know, but they flew over and definitely got my attention.
Wow.
I've never ever, there's no base near here. I've lived here for 24 years and I have never ever seen that in my life. Actually, in my life, I've never seen that. So it definitely got my attention and I was just kind of like, oh, okay, yeah. He's out of town, so you're like sending a message, you know, we know where you live, we know where your kids and family are, you know.
Wow.
So, and how I kind of, when I know somebody is threatening me or something, then I'll resist. So I felt that they were just trying to instill fear in me, so I didn't give them that satisfaction. So it didn't make me afraid.
Wow.
I mean, it kind of like shook me, you know, like, oh my gosh, but I was like, eh.
Where does that come from, Stacy?
I
Like,
don't
where
know.
does, that's amazing. Like, that's so empowering for you to just say that, like, it's not a big deal. Like, where does this strength come from you?
No, I don't, maybe it's part of the download.
Maybe, oh my gosh.
I mean, it
so
might
crazy.
be, I mean, I've had to deal with so much. I mean, in our marriage, we've been through so much. I mean, my goodness, we've been through a lot. I mean, I could write books. And I
want to be a part of that project. You have my number, call me.
Yes. And a lot of those things I can see now prepared us for this mission. It's very interesting. But so I think a lot of that maybe comes with that, but also so many things happened at the duplex that, I mean, I lived in fear a lot, actually. I had a lot of problems with fear. So by the time we came here, you know, as far as the military goes, in my mind, if they wanted to take me out, they would. So they're not going to make me afraid, you know, don't taunt me.
So you became a little bit resilient because of everything that you had already been through.
Yeah, because, I mean, there was a lot of, you know, when you have ETs coming and you're seeing weird stuff, I felt so vulnerable and out of control. Like, I couldn't, you know, especially abduction, I mean, and I didn't even remember it.
Throughout all of this, everybody can see, you know, online as we've been watching the transformation, there has been a gigantic shift in obviously consciousness, at least that, but also just like physicality, vitality, all of this as you guys have gone through this process. Can you speak to that a little bit about the health side of things and how it's changed you guys?
Yeah, it all kind of began, well, for one, I have always, well, not always, for the past 12 years, I've suffered with ulcerative colitis, off and on, actually. That's a story in itself, but I'll tie that in later. Corey was being told that he needed to eat a high-vibe diet, you know, and he wasn't really listening. And so then he had the interface with Kari, and she was encouraging him to do that as well, and he still didn't heed. So like 3 months later, about 3 months after he interfaced with her, when he was in Boulder, I happened to be there on that trip. In the hotel we were staying, he got food poisoning, and he had eaten a steak that night, and so that was the last meat he ever ate.
Wow!
After that. So, I mean, he just went cold turkey, and that's why he dropped so much weight, because, I mean, he completely changed his diet, and I've seen him do that before. He has gone vegetarian in the past for maybe a few months, and he said he felt so much better, but then you'd always go back, you know, to eating meat. But this time it was like a switch, you know, and he was done with that. Yeah, and so he lost all this weight, and then he was also being told that he needed to get off of his PTSD medication, the pain medication that he was still, because he also had, I know I talked about the first shoulder surgery. He had 2 surgeries after that one, a total of 3 surgeries. So that was kind of rounding up the surgeries, and so they were encouraging him, saying, you need to get off this stuff. So
Gotcha.
He did. He, you know, it was a process. Now, he did go through it very quickly. It was very transformative. But after that, like, he was so much clearer. You can see a change in the way he talks on Cosmic Disclosure. I mean, he goes, he gets way more detailed now, and that's why those medications do that to you. They dull you up.
Were you going through a transformation as well, side by side? Were the both of you, like, how was that?
Unfortunately not. I'm recently going through my transformation now. I mean, my big transformation right now. So he's been prodding me for a long time, Corey has, for me to make certain changes in my life, and to get off certain medications. And another thing that changed my life was in September when we went to Bridget Nielsen's and Kirk Nielsen's adventure, Sandra and Patrick as well. We went to the vegan workshop back in September. That was my first time to realize that I wasn't alone, and that changed my life. So because I was feeling, I was isolated, feeling very alone, and then I met people that were like-minded.
Yes.
And I could actually talk about things for the first time, and it just blew me away. It changed my life. I was like, wow, I'm not alone. It was so comforting, So
yeah, because you guys started to go to conferences and things like that.
Right,
yeah.
Right. And in Sedona, I met my best friend, and she actually knew a lot. She's a vegan, and she knows a lot about health. She cured her mother from cancer by having her go vegan. She knows a lot about keeping the body alkalized. So she helped me with some recipes and kind of how she eats, and I mimicked that. I followed what she was doing. So what I try to do is, of course, I eat gluten-free, but I also alkalize my body. I do an apple cider vinegar drink to detox. I try to detox my body and alkalize it. And greens, like a green powder, can alkalize, and cacao. There's like all kinds of things that alkalize your body. As long as I do that, I am symptomatic. I have no symptoms of ulcerative colitis.
Wow.
Now, I was taking a medication. I was taking a minimal amount. In Contact in the Desert, something's going on with my higher self, I guess. I don't know, but I inadvertently didn't put that medication in my daily things I take, and I did fine. So I have not taken it now for a week, and I'm doing great. And so
DNA activation.
Yeah. So as long as I eat that way, alkalize, and keep my body like detox, then I'm okay. I'm symptom free.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that was life changing. I suffered so much with ulcerative colitis. My heart goes out to people with ulcerative colitis or any autoimmune disease, especially digestive. Oh my gosh, it's very, very bad.
Well, it sounds like a lot has happened since you guys started to really reach out to the public and start to go to these conferences. Do you have any anecdotes from any of the conferences that you wanted to talk about?
Well, my first conference that I went to was the New Living Expo in San Francisco. And there, when Corey, when I attended his first talk live, I've seen the recordings, but when I attended his first talk live, it was, as I look back on it now, it was almost like information just kept hitting me. I kept like figuring things out. I was like, oh, that happened in my past to prepare us for this. And I could see how different family members played a part and how they taught me this and that prepared me for this. And I felt like at that point, like it was during that talk that I went, I understand my mission now. I get it. I know what I'm supposed to do. So, and I know that I am still figuring that out, but I have some ideas kicking around.
It's a process.
But yeah, I really feel like I was activated, and I think that that download kind of helped. Somehow it played a part, possibly, I think, because the way that I'm, the way that I've been able also to come off of these medications has been kind of crazy, but I think diet probably has a whole lot to do with it as
all
well.
of it in together, and usually your intuition, you can, with those things, like you're sitting with your soul and you're thinking like that's probably has a part to play in it, probably does, you have that intuition,
right.
And then in conjunction with changing your diet and everything. I know I touched on this earlier, but it sounds like even more so now, just coming out and being able to be in the public eye with the people that are with you in this experience and really a part of this whole movement can really be transformative as well, to feel like you're not so isolated. You mentioned that, in the beginning you guys kind of like isolated yourselves from everybody. How has that impacted your relationship with being able to now like be out and like with other people and talk to people like you?
It's exciting. I mean, these last, contact in the desert too. I mean, the words that come to my mind are invigorating and exhilarating, because like at the New Living Expo, there were so many synchronicities, and Corey had been telling me, we go, I get together, with my team, or like all these synchronicities happen, and we get the chills, and I experienced that, and I was like, man, this is what I've been missing out on.
Yeah.
Because I mean, the people I met, and then I would meet somebody. I'm not going to name names, but I would meet somebody, and then the next day I'd run into him, and then that afternoon I'd run into him again. It was just really crazy, to where other people I wasn't running into at all. It was like the universe was just directing and saying, here, you need to connect with these people some more, So a lot of things like that happened, and Contact in the Desert also was amazing.
You didn't always go to the conferences. There were some that Corey went to before. I know that there was one that he went to in Sedona, and he was asked by the crowd if you had watched Cosmic Disclosure. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. So somebody asked, so does your wife watch Cosmic Disclosure? And he said no. And the whole crowd just gasped, like, what? How could this be? Well, to explain that a bit, there were all of this activity was going on in my life. There was no escape from it.
Yeah.
There was no, like, if I would try to deny it, something would happen. It's like, no, this is really happening.
So even with all of whatever was going on, you're living this day to day. So all this stuff's happening at night, you can't get away from it. You're already having trouble processing.
Right. So, I've watched probably 20 episodes, plus whatever I've seen in Boulder, being in the studio here and there. But I just couldn't bring myself to watch it. It was just, it's like replaying my life.
I'm already there.
Let me watch my life on TV,
Yeah.
No, life is hard enough.
Yeah.
So that's, but I really enjoy attending the conferences.
Yeah.
I love connecting with people and meeting people that have written us, that have sent us gifts or whatever, and you meet people on Facebook too. So it's pretty cool.
That was really cool to see you guys at Contact in the Desert, and getting to watch and see really the impact that you guys have on people, and them getting to come up and say, thank you so much for sharing your story. And this is a perfect segue into the last portion of our interview, because I really just want to say thank you again, because I know it's a really big story. This is your life. This is the last, particularly 4 years of your life that has been completely earth-shattering and transformative for both you and Corey together.
Right.
And you are a huge inspiration, you and Corey both. And thank you for sharing your story, because I know that it's deep. It's a very deep thing, and I can only imagine how difficult it must be to go through everything you went through, and then to have the strength to not only get through it, but to come out on the other side and feel like the movement within your heart to help us and share with us how the idea behind this whole experience that you're sharing with me and with others is that we do have the strength to carry on. We do have the strength to get up in the morning and put one foot in front of the other, regardless of whatever it is that's going on in our lives, and to drive forward, love each other, and do something about it, do something.
Right.
And my question for you is, there are so many people out there, especially watching this and that have followed you guys, that are still in what, you know, for lack of a better term, in the spiritual closet. And they want to come out and they want to be out there and they want to be who they truly are. And you are a huge inspiration, especially to those people. And I've received a lot of questions related to that. And we just want to know how is it that you can come out and be who you are? What was it that allowed you to go through that change?
I would say really what allowed me to go through it was to be around like-minded people. You know, I would say if you're feeling isolated or like there's nobody else that you could talk to, go to one of these conferences. You know, there's a lot of different things out there that I don't even know about, you know, to where the like-minded people, you know, you're going to meet like-minded people, and that changed my life. I mean, in September, I met my best friend who got me on the right track for my health. I mean, it was life-changing.
Yeah.
So, and I really feel too that I know that Sandra Rollis, she talks about a lot about the divine feminine, and she does. She recently did a workshop, in fact, a Shakti Power workshop. But in that women, we need to be helping each other and standing by each other instead of, you know, being judgmental or catty or whatever. We're stronger together and we can help each other out because we all have gifts. So, you know, I may have one gift that can help somebody out, but then it's reciprocated right back and it's a beautiful thing. So.
Absolutely. Gorgeous answer. Thank you again so much for coming on the show, Divine Frequency. And
I'm definitely going to be at Eclipse of Disclosure, and then MUFON, I hope to.
Okay.
I definitely hope to.
Awesome.
So.
Well, thank you so much, and let's stay in touch. And you know, as more things come out and you guys have questions, you know, this is just going to be the beginning, and we can definitely do more interviews. And thank you, everyone, for all of the outpouring of support. It has been so amazing, and getting a chance to talk with Stacy and having her agree to do this interview, and then putting that out there and seeing the overwhelming amount of support coming back at all of the questions that you guys sent me. Thank you so much for that. And thank you, Stacy. And we look forward to hearing from you more and going through this journey together as a collective.
Yes. Let's keep it positive. Everybody. Bye. Bye.
Thank you.